So in this match against JyGein, she did change up decks, so this definitely gets pretty interesting. It's a water wind deck. So we had both got 7, so we had to reroll. I got 19, she got a 17, so got to choose, and I chose to go second. So starting hand pretty good. Open Nectar of the Gods, Foamy, Earthquake, Shield, Ambrosia, not too useful right now, but still nice to just have to be able to see. Actually, I thought I didn't play any Ambrosias this match, so guess I was wrong. But my opponent starts off with a really cool play with both Aphoros and Poseidon with 2 spirits. So what she did there was she nexused 1 spirit from Poseidon onto Aphoros using Poseidon's effect, and then immediately nexus it back with Aphoros' ability to draw 2. So essentially, she was able to get her own Nectar of the Gods without actually losing any spirits or any cards on board, which is really, really good and a great going first play. So she's also able to set 2. So I used my Nectar of the Gods. Had to use 2 spirits there, but that's kind of what I intended it to be, so not too bad. No real way to interact with the back row right now, or a confident way to deal with the Aphros other than with the Earthquake here. So I choose to use the Earthquake just so she can't draw more cards off of that combo, because the more cards she sees, the more likely she's going to be able to deal with what I have. So I just set to go Foamy and decide to start testing counter runes, though chooses not to activate any of them. So here goes into her own Foamy in defense, not wanting to crash here, and I believe just passes from here. So interesting play, definitely could have crashed, but at the same time, and got both of us a filter, but I would be able to utilize that filter a bit better than she would here. So don't disagree with this play, though it definitely means that I get a chance to deny her Foamy's ability here if I had like another Earthquake or something. So I choose to go Peagust, and I pop the Poseidon just to make sure she can't do any nexusing shenanigans. I figured that with this slow start, I can try to, since she didn't try to proc any of the counter, if she had any counter runes back, I figured it was better just to go for the Poseidon, which was a known threat if she has another Aphoros, and I can start dealing with those counter runes just by attacking Peagust and Foamy. So ends up extending the Foamy into Capricorn, tornadoing back one of them. So she didn't know which one to pick, so she just stacked them and randomized which one to put back. But Tornado here definitely interesting, but unfortunately I had 2 shields here, so it didn't really matter. Was able to bounce the Capricorn. Huge minus here for my opponent. Lost out on the Foamy with getting no value, wasn't able to recur it, so and now she has to set up another way to get Capricorn back. So definitely set the next shield. I probably, in hindsight, I should have set the Ambrosia here. And oh yeah, so I just decide to reenchant Peagust, start procking and popping these um, her set cards, and just be able to attack for 3 spirits, ends up taking them, which is really making me think that final set card is not a counter rune here. So goes into Peliquarius to start searching stuff out, possibly like, a Tad Puff so she can easily go up into the Capricorn again. So not a bad play here, just to be able to set up again. So she ends up going Bag of Winds, a really interesting card that makes it so Peliquarius cannot be targeted by counter runes and increases defense, so it's at 5 defense. So like this Earthquake here won't work. So pretty good there. Makes it so I can't actually attack over this. Actually, no, that's not true. I have the Mostation here, which is actually a funny out to Peliquarius. Though, I was going to say not any other card could really answer this board, but that's not true. Sorlet would have been able to as well. Though I wouldn't actually have had the Wind Spirits because I have 2 on Peagust. So interesting fact there. Though I guess I could have ascended Peagust with a Water Spirit. But anyway, Mostation does the job here with that 6 attack, being able to attack over the Peliquarius. It's really showing that while these artifacts are good, they're definitely a more high risk, high reward feeling card, kind of like Ascending as well. So you have to be very careful when you do that to make sure that if you do, you're getting the most value out of it. So ends up going for the Tad Puff into Capricorn play and bouncing back the shield. Here's where I should have set the Ambrosia with the shield then following turn so possibly she wouldn't be able to do this. But she's able to get her Capricorn value, well, kind of, forcing me to expend a spirit. But since she's out of spirits herself, as long as she can't call the Foamy, so with the Earthquake, I can pretty much just seal the game here, deal with her 1 threat, and attack for game here. So we can move on to game 2. But this game right here really, the last match I definitely felt it, but testing against someone who who wasn't still just learning the rules, my deck here did exactly what I intended it to. I controlled in the early game, trying to make sure those runes were out of the way. I was controlling the board, making sure that her stuff wasn't sticking, or if she was getting stuff to stick, I was able to answer with earthquakes or counter runes. on following turns, and just making sure that I'm the one with the Elestrals on board, so then I can transition into that beatdown, and I expended her spirits and was able to put her in a place where she just couldn't win. So perfect example of, if anything, that game is a perfect example of what I was hoping when I designed this deck. So let me actually skip ahead to when we start the next match. So getting into game 2 here, another pretty good start. Poison Tip Arrow, not the best counter rune, but with a Foamy for a neutral play, Peagust to answer counter runes, and a Sorlet here as a great answer to really any Elestral with high attack or high defense. I really like my starting hand here. The Tad Puff isn't very useful. I mean, I could easily Special Ascend to call it down for more of a beatdown strategy. I just don't think that's, I don't know if that's very good, to be honest. So JyGein actually chooses to go second since she lost last round, so I was able to just, actually a good play is just to play out a Foamy, because now it forces her to find creative ways to attack over it. In this case, she didn't really have it here, so she just goes Aphros, does the Nexus bounce play. She doesn't, or the Spirit Nexus play between the two. Doesn't move any spirits because they just end up in the same place to draw 2. But not actually answering my Foamy, so I was able to take advantage here, Earthquake to get rid of the Aphros, and I go into Peagust here. And here I choose, instead of to deal with the Poseidon, I choose to deal with the face downs. And actually, before I can say, I pop shield and she triggers arrow afterwards, because I'm pretty sure in the rulings that before I get priority, so Peagust's ability happens before Poison Tip Arrow's trigger will happen as well. So I could have popped that Poison Tip Arrow and not lost the Peagust, but that's fine. I was actually quite fine with that. That was I was able to deal with 2 counter runes for a 1 Spirit Peagust, which actually is the exact purpose I had Peagust for. So here she's able to pop the Poison Tip. Oh, actually, nope, I'm wrong. I'm wrong about that ruling. So you can poison tip arrow before Peagust's effect happens. That's what it is. I think it's just based on the wording where poison tip arrow says when an opponent's Celestial is enchanted, versus say Peagust where it's when this receives a wind spirit. So sorry, my bad about that ruling. Some of you probably in the comments saying nope, that's wrong. Hopefully we got up to this part before you could press enter on that one. So oh yeah, this I actually ended up timing out of the server here. No problem. I'm able to, thankfully, even though the server crashed for me, kicked off me and the spectator Rat King, it was actually still there. The game was still up, so I was able to log back in and we're able to resume it. So, yep, everything's back where it was. I was able to get a Poison Tip Arrow off on the Peagust, and I just decided to destroy it. Drew into another Peagust there to pop that rune and force 2 more spirits. I left at the Poseidon this turn, this game, because I wasn't sure if it was the correct play last turn, so I decided to test if it was. I don't want to spoil the rest of this game, but we'll get into it at the very end there. So goes into a Sorlet, really great play just to start attacking over stuff. So I think JyGein attacks over the Peagust here, because of course Foamy will float. It's better to force me down to 1 Elestral than let me float and keep 2 on. So here I've got a Sorlet, which lets me answer my opponent's Sorlet if I had another Wind Spirit, which I actually do not have here, which kind of stinks. I don't have an Ambrosia here. So that's definitely tough. I can still, of course, crash. Oh, okay. So I actually choose to expend 1 to draw 1. In hindsight, I should have misenchanted the Sorlet and just crashed, because I still would have had advantages. I still would have been able to beat down, force 1 spirit out of my opponent. And my opponent reveals the Exaltair, which I poison tip arrow immediately just to make sure. So specifically why I did this is because by doing it this way, sure Sorlet can attack over Foamy, but I flow into something that the Exaltair can't actually deal with. So that's why I did it. And you see that play here. But before that, what JyGein did was she used Exaltair's Nexus ability to Nexus the Wind Spirit on the Sorlet over to the Poseidon. Well, actually, let me back up. First, what she did was Nexus the Water Spirit from Poseidon onto Sorlet, then Nexus the Wind Spirit on Sorlet to Poseidon. That way Sorlet would still be on the board. That way to force me to expend 2 spirits. So here actually, I go into Mestachian. I think because I had another Foamy, I decided Mestachian would be stronger because it actually gives me an out to Sorlet here. So that's why I did that. Now I drew Nectar of the Gods, and here I choose not to use it. I'm running low on spirits, so that's why I decide not to actually play Nectar of the Gods. cards would be nice, but with a Sorlet in hand with 5 attack, Foamy on board to floor into stuff, Moustachian here to expend to attack over stuff, I had answers, so I wasn't too worried. So here, I believe, yeah, this conversation here was on when she enchanted Foamy, do I want to use Moustachian's ability? And I choose not to. Because what would have happened there, I would have expended a Water Spirit, Foamy would have crashed into Foamy and floated, and just both of Foamies would have flown into something new, and I would have had to expend 2 spirits here. But because I didn't use the Moustachian's ability, I kept up 1 spirit. I was prioritizing spirit advantage because I wasn't too worried about true. The other play, despite costing 2 spirits, would have kept 2 spirits on board. I just, in that moment, determined that it was not worth the spirit count since I was running low, and I still had cards in hand I could use. So like here, I can float Foamy into another Moustachian. I can misenchant Sorlet to start attacking over stuff. My opponent chooses to float into Aphros. And here's where I start noticing some misplays here. For one, I didn't realize it at the time, but look, having watched this back, I definitely think I should have used Moustachian's ability because it would have kept me an even greater board advantage. I would have had 3 Elestrals instead of 2, which would have helped me close out the game a bit sooner because I'm still in control mode and I'm running out of spirits. I really need to be switching to beatdown mode here to close out the game and make sure my opponent doesn't have any responses. But now my opponent has an Aphros up. Granted, it's misenchanted because she had no Leviathan in her spirit deck. But with that Poseidon up, it's actually a bit scary. And we were actually discussing it here. So because of the order of how things are triggered, or actually it was a moot point. I was thinking of the ruling because technically Aphros is misenchanted. So that was my question. So she had 2 spirits on the Poseidon. So of course she could Nexus one this the Leviathan to Aphros. Actually, real quick, she uses the Peliquarius here. Let's see what she sorts out, and then I'll explain the ruling question that we had here. So reveals. Oh, that was a bit too quick, but I believe is another Aphros here, just to be able to abuse the draw stuff. Uses the Ambrosia to get back some water spirits, but really the ruling question I had for this was if you Nexus a Leviathan from Poseidon onto Aphros, but then Nexus that water spirit back, does Aphros still get the draw too? And because it's all one action, yes, it would, even though after that effect resolves, it's technically misenchanted. So fun little interaction there. So you can actually misenchant Aphros as long as you have a Poseidon with a Leviathan on, well, 2 Leviathans, or even another spirit. Like, as long as you have something you can Nexus those spirits to, it's fine. But fun little interaction there. So really couldn't get over my board here. So I choose to ascend up into Paprigal and get Poison Tipped Arrowed, which isn't the end of the world because it's fine to give the Moustachian because Caprigal is just a bit stronger, and it lets me get out my Foamy to continue the more beatdown style. And even though it's a misenchant, it's fine. So that was my final spirit, and that's very relevant. So I was able to then attack over with the Sorlet, leave her with nothing, and attack with the Foamy. So here, does choose to destroy the Caprigal. And I'm really wishing I'd seen some Ambrosias this game, as I'm definitely wishing I had them. I'm pretty much stuck with the Sorlet and the Foamy on board, so if my opponent has ways to answer it, that's game. And she actually has the Aeolus here, and that's relevant because her out to be able to attack over my stuff here is Exaltair, as it'll force me to expend 2 spirits with the Nexus, and she had the Ambrosia anyway to recycle stuff, so there is no way I was really winning that. So a bit of a shame. Definitely looking back on it, there's a lot I could have done. For instance, I definitely should have tried to transition from control to beatdown a lot sooner, as the game just that control part of the game really dragged on for too long. I ended up losing too many spirits in that exchange. Also, interestingly, I think I was punished for trying to deal with the set cards instead of the Poseidon. The whole reason that, or I shouldn't say the whole reason, I don't know, that Peliquarius could have been in the hand for a while, but definitely by leaving it the Poseidon, I allowed JyGein to dig a whole lot deeper into the deck as she was able to get those Aphroses from both the Foamy as well as, I said Peliquarius, or she added the another Aphros off of the Peliquarius. It was the Aeolus that she's able to dig into, potentially, I don't know this, but to be able to find that Exaltair to start really attack over stuff, as with that Sorlet on board, that was definitely posing her a threat. I'm sure there are other plays that I made throughout the game that I'm just not remembering now that I definitely should have done differently, and I think I pointed out most of them. So, uh, let's move on to game three. So in game three here, since I lost, I choose to go second as always, and my opponent again starts off with Poseidon plus Aphros. That's 3 games in a row that she's gotten the same 2 cards, which is really good. Again, doesn't move the spirits here because we know that they're just bouncing back to draw 2. So definitely, I would say a really strong play just to see more resources, and does play it in defense. But here, again, I have the Earthquake answer. I only run 2 of, but it's really showing up clutch here. That way I can choose to Peagust to answer the Poseidon as well as Earthquake to get the Aphros. And in this game, I actually do recognize that I really should have dealt with the Poseidon last turn. So I end up Peagusting to destroy the Poseidon here. I know I was a bit hesitant since she didn't set any counter runes, that I maybe wanted to save the Peagust for that, but I ended up just choosing to deal with the threat at hand and not letting JyGein be able to draw more cards, as I can definitely with like a foamy start trying to bait out those counter runes. I think that's fine. And as you see here, she goes into her own Peagust here while I have no runes set up. So I'm glad I didn't set Scythe here, as now and she doesn't say any counter runes, so that was the other thing I was kind of hoping for with this, and it seems like it definitely paid out, as I'm able to then special ascend into the Globby, start really capitalizing on its ability to draw extra cards, and also start taking advantage of the fact I can start beating down my opponent. So here I equipped Scythe onto Peagust, and so I can attack her with Peagust and attack the Spirit deck for 3, also refreshing 1. So here I definitely transition more into a beatdown. I know it's a bit risky as she has so many cards in hand. I haven't seen these counter runes, but yet again, since the Peagust stuck, I felt that pretty and with the Scythe on, I felt pretty comfortable that it would be a bit hard for my opponent to deal with both Globby and Peagust. And of course, I can always try to bait out those counter runes with other ones, and I don't necessarily have to attack with Globby. So I just try to go for more of a commanding position, and it's Poison Tip Arrow anyway. So here I thought that I just didn't give her time to respond on the foamy enchant, forgetting that Poison Tip Arrow also works for enchants. I actually never considered that. I was always thinking just the normal or the re-enchants, not effect enchants, but yep, it works that way. So, and actually I think it works out just fine here, enchanting the foamy. It's still the right play, as it still baited out the Poison Tip Arrow even if I lose 2 spirits in the process here. And it kind of stinks I lost a foamy as I'm not able to float into more, but with a Mustachian in hand, I've got a Capricorn to recur it. I'm not too worried here. So my opponent draws another, or actually, I should say draws. She later reveals that she opened, I believe, 2 of the Ambrosias and then quickly drew into the 3rd one. So not too surprising that she's just refreshing them with those. Sets up an Aeolus so she can start searching for those Elestrals that she needs. But at this point, I've kind of grasped the board very quickly. So it's going to be a bit tricky for my opponent to come back, especially with a 4-attack Peagust, a 5-attack Globby, and I'm actually able to net my own cards with Globby's effect, which is quite nice. Not as powerful as a draw 2. Chooses to grab the Exaltair, so she can Nexus to force 2 spirits out. Definitely just trying to chip away at my own resources, knowing that she's behind. And we see the 3rd Ambrosia. So despite all my beatdowns, she's still kind of able to do stuff, but now she's down to 2 cards in hand. Crashes the Peagust into the Exaltair into the Peagust to protect that Aeolus to make sure that she can still search out one. I think here she lost count of a spirit here. We weren't so sure what happened, so she just accepted that. Probably just a 2 enchant here, or accidentally Nexus the 2 on. Oh, actually, I wasn't paying attention to my hand. I wasn't too worried because I had the other Peagusts as well. So, another reason why I don't think I had it in my opening hand either, but drawing into other Peagusts, it just kind of like, oh, okay, that play was fine. So, able to force out 5 spirits here, sets 1, not too many spirits left in deck. I feel like I'm in a pretty commanding position here, to definitely try to close out this game. So, that's Peagust definitely really feeling great in this deck, giving me that rune control I desperately needed. Here I misenchanted Peagust because I'm out of wind spirits, but I figured that with that, I would just start attacking, and so be it. Actually, I think my opponent was down to so low spirits that she ended up just folding as. Oh no, that set up victory here. She had 6 spirits, I believe. 2 would have been used on the shield to bounce back the Globby, and I would have expended the rest. So that ended up being game. So as I was saying, Peagust feeling really good to give me that rune control. Definitely could have been baited there. So that was one thing that I remember considering that game was the Peagust the correct play here to pop the Poseidon. And as I'm kind of seeing with this deck and kind of feeling out this my opponent's deck, I think it was the correct play to force my opponent to stop drawing cards. I can't say it's the correct play in every single game though, but knowing that I'm probably able to start baiting out counter runes with my other guys when I'm already ahead isn't really too bad, as it still forces spirits from my opponent as long as I'm able to kind of answer their stuff as well. But all in all, great match against JyGein. Thank you so much for letting me record this again. It was a lot of fun. I loved seeing your deck in action and actually taking some inspiration from that Afros Poseidon play as a great proactive play, because that's really what I think my deck is lacking. But anywho, that's more discussion for kind of the post game play wrap up that I'll get into later. But also, there is one more play that's kind of starting here, but I'm going to leave that for another video, so look forward to that.